I'd rather go overboard with compassion than go overboard with punishment.
The life lessons you're about to learn, they're going to stay with you forever. Let me tell you about America's nicest judge, 88-year-old Frank Caprio. Judge Caprio had its show on public television for 25 years that was shot in his courtroom in Rhode Island. These are videos that make people smile, laugh, ugly cry, and believe in humanity again, all at the same time.
So I'm going to ask you one question. Is your father guilty or not guilty? And without hesitation.
What do you say?
Guilty.
Guilty.
But then something wild happened. Exploded. Syndicated on 200 stations, 4 Emmy nominations, 10 billion views worldwide. And he has 2.9 million followers on Instagram, 1.4 million followers on TikTok, 2 million followers on Facebook, 500,000 subscribers, and over 100 million views on YouTube. But today, he's here for you and me.
My first day on the court set the tone of my judgeship of over 30 years. You can change the course of someone's life by placing your hand on their shoulder and telling them that you love them, that you believe in them.
Can you share what this journey of facing this cancer diagnosis has taught you?
Stay close to the people you love.
First of all, I gotta say, I am so excited, Judge Caprio, that you are here. It is an honor to meet you, Your Honor.
Well, you have a pretty good reputation yourself.
Well, that's a very, very kind thing to say, especially coming from somebody who's as respected as you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, here's how I want to start. Judge Caprio, you are 88 years old. You have millions of followers on social media. So many of us were introduced to you because you were on television for 25 years and became known as America's nicest judge. What has 40 years on the bench and 88 years on this planet taught you about life?
Help other people. Lift other people. Particularly the unfortunate, the disabled, those in need, the hungry. You know, it doesn't take much. Sometimes it's just a matter of being nice and putting your hand on their shoulder and telling them that you believe in them. And if there's anything I could ever do to help you, like, let me know. You know, it's not a heavy lift at all for us. For them, it's like lifting a mountain. You know, but just letting them know that you care. It's not always giving. It's just giving of yourself. I always make the reference of put your hand on someone's shoulder. Tell them you love them. Tell them you believe in them, particularly your children and close associates and people who are in despair, who are going through crisis. Just let them know that you care, It's very so important.
You know, I love that about you. You, as a judge and as a human being, always take a person's story into consideration. And I think it's remarkable at the age of 88, you're a retired judge. You also are a bona fide social media phenomenon. And you are known as America's nicest judge. Why do you think it's important to be kind and nice to people?
Because people look up to the judiciary sometimes in a way that's terrifying. You know, and unfortunately, it's not nice for me to say this, but unfortunately, some judges put a robe on and they think it gives them the ability to take certain excesses that I don't appreciate or agree with, you know. I think that you have an obligation, though. You have that robe on, you know, and you have all of this authority, you know, and I always place myself in the shoes of the person before me. You know, it's a working guy with 4 kids. It's a mother, you know, and they're trembling. Even it doesn't make any difference who they are. They're trembling. They're before a judge. They don't know what's going to happen. You know, when the judge is up there, you know, many judges, they take themselves seriously. They say, oh, they're there. Oh, I get the robe on, you know. I'm the boss here, and I mean, I never subscribed to that theory. I always thought that you could be understanding and compassionate. It's very simple. It's what I was taught at my house. I was raised that way with my parents. My father was one of 10. My mother was one of 8. I had 18 aunts and uncles. One was more compassionate than the other. So it's all the basic unit of society is the family unit, and everything springs from that.
One of the things that I also know about you is that you became famous and beloved for giving people second chances. And so here you are, a judge, and you are usually working with people or you're presiding over cases where people have parking fines, traffic violations, but you always sought to understand what was going on with somebody. Why do you believe people deserve second chances, Judge?
Well, tell me who doesn't need a second chance in life. Tell, in other words, go through your life and think of all those times that you were given a break or a second chance. It's just to be, you know, the words understanding and compassionate, are not just words. They sound nice. Say, oh, it's wonderful. He's compassionate. What does that mean? It's the exercise of being compassionate and understanding. And it's very simple. I just put myself in the shoes of the person before me. You know, I had not difficult, that's not the right word, but a very interesting bringing up. I came from a poor family, and well, we have stories about things that we couldn't have and places we went that people didn't think we belonged because we were poor and all of that. And my father was like a rock. You know, he says, "I'm a working man," and he'd wear his milkman uniform. He didn't care. He'd wear it to a Christmas ball. And it was brought up to always take other people into consideration.
So, what did you learn from your dad by riding on the milk truck and going on the delivery route as your dad was?
I learned how to treat people by my father's example. My father was a very understanding person. One simple example is he worked for a big company, and they had a standard rule that if someone did not pay their milk bill after 2 weeks, you stop delivery. That was the company's policy. My father had his own policy. If they have children, he wasn't stopping the milk. He didn't care how far behind they were. And as a matter of fact, many times he'd put in, back in those days, it was a lot of money, he put in $1 or $2 toward their milk bill to tell his superiors they're making it an effort to pay and they have children. And he stood them down, you know. So I was, there was a nice big sign on the truck. It says no riders. You wasn't supposed to be on the truck unless you work for the company. Except for my brother and I. My father would wake us up, and we were riders.
And carriers of the milk, probably
Right,
too,
right,
right?
right.
You write in your remarkable book, Compassion in the Court, about one of the most impactful moments in your life. You were in sixth grade, you were about to graduate, and something happened. Could you tell us that story?
I'm not sure if they still do this, but when you left the sixth grade, you went to middle school, and it was a big deal. And we all had an autograph book. And our friends would sign it. If you're thirsty and you're near a spring, all of that.
All the
So,
funny stuff
yeah.
that kids write, right?
So my father came home from work one day, and he was tired. And he had his milkman uniform on, and he was reading the newspaper, and I had my autograph book. I had my mother sign the autograph book first. I said, "Mom, you want to sign the book?" She signed 3 pages. Love, Mom. I love you. So I asked my father. I said, "Dad, will you sign my book?" And he didn't. So he just reached for it, and he put it down, and he just was staring at it for what seemed like a long time, probably a couple of minutes, trying to think of what he was going to say, to his 12-year-old son who's going to go to middle school. The street is wide. The road is long and very bumpy and very tough going, but I know that you will proceed along it honorably with your head held high to the end of the highest learning. And then the line that really got me here was from your dad, Antonio Caprio Jr. My father was born in Italy. He came here with his parents, but he wanted to make sure that this document was accurate. So it wasn't just your dad, Antonio Caprio Jr. This is an official document with my legal name. And I really mean it from the bottom of my heart, is what he was saying to me.
What does it mean to you?
I still have that book. It's in the right-hand drawer of my desk. And I keep it.
What do you think your dad was trying to say to you in that phrase?
My dad was trying to say to me, listen, we don't have the resources to give you material things in life. The road is tough going. It's very tough going. So you're going to have to be a little bit tougher than the next person, and you're going to have to study hard. And he constantly was saying, you have to go to college. You have to go to college.
I'm reading to you from page 43. And you write, and you're reflecting on what your father said. My father was not educated, but he had the soul of a poet. I have read that message 1,000 times. His words touched me to this day, and I still find myself trying to make him proud and live up to his high expectations for me. To successfully navigate the wide street and long and bumpy road, we all need a moral compass. I wasn't told how to be moral. I learned by watching others. Most importantly, the fine examples set by my mother and father. And they did set a really big example for you. And your father kept saying, go to college. And so you did. Tell me about going to college and what happened next in your life.
My father was one of 10, and he was considered the smartest one of the family. He was right in the middle. And unfortunately, he couldn't go to college because of the financial position. Family of 10 immigrated from Italy. They were fruit peddlers with a push cart. So my father's dream always was to go to college, and it was not afforded to him. But he wanted to make sure that my brother and I both had an education. And he would wake us up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go to work on the truck. And he would constantly say, if you don't want to do this, you got to go to college. He just drove that into us. And it worked because a lot of my friends, after high school, we had no money, and they went out and got a job, and then they were able to buy a car, and they had some material things that I didn't have. And there was a temptation to not to go to college, to go out and get a job. But it was my father's dream that we do that, and he impressed it upon us so much that it was a no-brainer for me that I had to go.
Where did you go to college? And did you know
Providence College.
you went to Providence College? Did you know you wanted to be a lawyer?
My father, when I must have been 12 years old, we lived in what they call a cold water flat, which meant we didn't have heat, central heat. We had an old potbelly stove. And I recall it like it happened like 5 minutes ago, that my brother and myself, and it was freezing that day, and we were sitting, they kept the oven door open so we could get some heat. My father would talk about things in life and so forth. And he was saying to my brother, this is what you're going to do in life and so forth. And he said to me, he says, you're a good talker. These are his words. And I was 12 years old, and I still remember them. He says, you're a good talker. You're going to be a lawyer someday. It was like an edict coming down from heaven. I never wanted to be or do anything else except be a lawyer. As a matter of fact, when I was in middle school, we had to write a career book in the 8th grade. My career book was on being a lawyer, and when I went to school, my courses were all geared toward going into the legal profession. And it was just that one sentence that my father said to me. And if I remember it correctly, he put his hand on my shoulder. Put his hand on my shoulder. You could have said, "You're going to be president of the United States." No, 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 no. I'm going to be a lawyer. My father said, "I'm going to be a good lawyer." And then my father said, and this still remains with me. He said, "Remember, you can't judge poor people like us. You can't judge poor people like us." And then he said, "But don't worry, because you make it up with the rich people." Those were his exact words. I was 12 years old. And can I tell you something? My law office has never charged a poor family. Never. And we won't.
It is amazing because you're right. It is like it came straight down from heaven because he basically told you what was going to happen, that you would be successful like the rich people, but you would never, ever, ever judge the poor.
I think more parents should do that. Sometimes parents think the way they can get their kids to succeed is by berating them. But you have to encourage them. Let them know you believe in them.
And you did that every day in court. It was absolutely amazing to watch because you didn't just talk it, you showed it. When you graduated from college, did you go straight to law school?
I determined when I was a junior in college
Uh
that
huh.
I would not have enough money to go to law school, so I'd have to get a job teaching. And but I had majored in political science, which I thought would prepare me for law school, which doesn't, incidentally. It prepares you for political science. It does not prepare you for law school. But there was this misconception that, oh, you take political science, that's a pretty good entrance into law. It's not. Actually, business is a better entrance into law for all you kids out there who want to go to college and then to law school. Major in business. I was a wrestling coach as well.
Yeah.
I taught at Hope High School in Providence, Rhode Island.
And how did teaching high school and coaching a wrestling team, what did that teach you about life?
Well, life's a lesson for me.
Hmm.
There's all the things that they taught you when you were younger. If you don't give up, if you stay, you stay the course. You know, you find a way to do it. It's hard work, but you will survive. So I always did what I had to do. But my final goal was law school.
Yeah.
Law school, because my father said to me, "You're going to be a lawyer." Right? And I wanted to be a lawyer after that because I never wanted to be anything else.
How long did you teach before because you went to law school at night
I went
at
to law school
Suffolk?
nights. Yeah, 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I taught for 6 years.
So you taught for 6 years. And then while you were teaching, you went to law school at night.
Yes.
Wow. And what did that period of your life teach you? Just keep going? There's a will, there's a way. You can figure it out.
There never was, oh, poor me. And I used to drive. Me and a friend of mine would drive up to law school. And then he dropped out. So I drive up alone. Sometimes I took the train. One time I got stuck right outside the Lafayette house and had to hitchhike the rest of the way to school. Uh,
Well, there's one thing about you. Once you lock your mind on something, you're going to find a way.
oh, yeah, I'm going to find a way.
So, what kind of law did you practice before you?
General law.
General law.
General law.
And how did you come to be elected to become a judge?
First of all, I ran for the Providence City Council when I was a lawyer, and I ran against the president of the city council, who was a very powerful individual. He had been in the council for 35 years. He was considered the most powerful figure in Providence, more powerful than the mayor. And it was a remarkable victory back then.
What happened when you won?
I won. I was the boss.
That's fantastic. So, when did you decide to run and become a judge? Or how were you appointed to become a judge?
Actually, I was appointed by the city council because it's a municipal
Got it.
judgeship.
Okay.
So I had my friends on the council, and I had the councilman from my district and the mayor supporting me. I had a pretty good record in public life, so I wasn't exactly an unknown.
Now, were you excited to be a judge? Is it something that you thought you wanted to do, or did
Well,
somebody recommend it to you?
this judgeship was ideal for me because it's a part-time judgeship because I could never have support of 5 kids on a judge's
Mm.
salary, particularly a municipal judge's salary. So so I was able to be I was actually a part-time judge. I was the chief judge, and there were 2 other judges, but it wasn't I could still practice law while I was practicing on the court as well. If not, I would never have been able to take the job.
So, in your incredible book, chapter 19, you write about the first day as a judge
Oh, yeah.
and what it taught you about compassion. Would you be able to tell us that story about what happened the first day you?
I'm on I get elected now I'm a judge. I got the robe, right? I'm gonna go. I'm the boss. I'm gonna sit on the bench, and this is it now, right? I've arrived. So I said to my father, I said, Dad, my first day on the bench. He said, I'll come down and watch. I said, good. Come down. I'll offer you to come down. So I'm there, and I am really full of myself. I'm a judge now. Look at me. All rise, please. Everybody rises and so forth. It's so crazy. So this woman comes before me. She owed, I don't know, she had a boot on her car. I don't know what she owed, a couple $100 in tickets, and she couldn't pay them. So I said, well, if you don't pay it, I'm not going to take the boot off the car. And she says, I just don't have the money. I don't have the money, and I have 4 kids. It's my first day on the bench. No one's going to bully me around, right? So I says, well, you owe the money, and if you don't, we're going to leave the boot on the car. She said, I don't have the money. I have to get my kids to school. So I said, I'm sorry. Continue the case. We'll give you a couple of days to come in, right? And my father's in the courtroom. After court's over, my father comes into chambers. I said to the sheriff, have my father come in chambers. I'm so happy. I said, Dad, how did it go? He said, how did it go? How could you do that? How could I do what? He said, that woman. I said, she was disrespectful. I said, she wasn't respecting the court. I said, I wasn't going to take care of her. He said, Frank, she had 4 kids. Now, suppose she can't feed the kids tonight if she paid those tickets. Now she doesn't have a car. She can't drive them to school. What are you doing? You weren't brought up that way. My first day on the court set the tone of my judgeship of over 30 years. After that, I took everybody's personal situation into consideration in the imposition of a sentence. And that case still bothers me. It still bothers me to this day when I think about it. I say to myself, how could you do that? With my upbringing and so forth. And I don't know why my first day is my case. This woman, she was insulting to begin with, but you have to overcome that.
Because she was scared.
And she
And
was scared to death, right?
yes,
As my father said.
well, I think she was a gift to you because you write in this book on page 110. The lesson was that being a judge is much more about the person in front of you
Right.
than it is about the law. Since then, I've always tried to find out what was really going on with the person, and I always considered how my ruling would impact not only them, but their whole family.
Right.
Like, if you really think about
And I
that,
did that. Those aren't only words. I did that.
yes, yes, you did. You did that for over 30 years.
Right.
And I think you needed that case with your father sitting there to be reminded of who you are. We all need those moments. You were just smart enough and wonderful enough to recognize what it was and to actually change, which is incredible. If somebody is listening to you, Judge, and they want to follow your advice of putting more kindness into the world, of being more compassionate towards other people, how can you practice that, particularly in a moment of time where things seem overwhelming, the headlines are stressful, the economy's all over the place, or maybe you feel like, well, it's not going to make a difference if I'm kind? What would you say to somebody?
Place yourself in their shoes. Imagine that you were sitting there because it can happen to all of us. You know, tomorrow we don't know what tomorrow brings. We've had many very wealthy people who ended up penniless. And so I always have subscribed to that. I always place myself in the shoes of the person that was before me, and then try to exercise a modicum of
Hmm.
compassion and understanding. Sometimes I went overboard, but you know what? I'd rather go overboard with compassion than go overboard with punishment.
When you step into somebody else's shoes, as a judge, you have seen people at their most vulnerable. You have seen them scared. You've seen them ashamed. What's something that you've learned from all of these interactions with people that really gives you hope about human beings and the world? Because you have been in this amazing role as a judge. You step into people's shoes, you consider their circumstances, you always take into account how this is going to impact the family. What do you believe is true about the true nature of every human being that stands before you?
We're not in this world alone. We have to rely on other people for many necessities in life, for some of our needs. We have an obligation to use whatever resources we have, our own resources, to help others, to make society better because of our contributions. Those are words we hear all the time. Dedicate yourself to a cause, give to charity, help people. They sound good, but put them in practice. I mean, I've seen people, for lack of a better term, who are frauds, who are preaching this but don't do it. People in public life, they preach one thing and do another. My theory always was, if you deserved an 8 or you deserved a 6 in sympathy, I gave you a 10, hoping that it would help you and that it would change your life.
You mentioned that you really regret how you handled that first case. How do you deal with regret? The things that you wish you had done differently?
It's a lesson. Just I never repeated it after that, and I was on the bench for 30 years after that. I never repeated it. I can't tell you how many times I was there and I knee-jerk reaction. I wanted to really bang somebody, and I says, I can't do that. They have kids at home. They probably won't be able to put food on the table tonight. So all of those things.
Judge, your show, Caught in Providence, went on public access TV in Rhode Island about 25 years ago. And it later went into syndication all over the world. And now you are online. You have millions of followers. These clips inspire people around the world. I'm talking billions of views. Why do you think your work and your approach to life and relationships is resonating with people?
Because it addresses decency, it addresses honor, it addresses all of those things that families are hoping for themselves. And that's what it's all about. It addresses compassion and understanding. I don't just use those words. When I was on the bench, I exercised them, you know. And it's very simple. Just put yourself in the shoes of the person before you. How do you want them to treat you?
Hmm. You have been just known and people follow you. Millions of people follow you because of the incredible advice that you give. What do you think the best advice is that you've given?
Just be honorable.
What does that mean? Because I
Just,
think in
just
the
be
world today, a
come,
lot of people don't even think about honor.
when people came before me, I would implore them, just tell me the truth. Just tell me the truth. Be honorable about all of this. And at the end of the day, it pays off. It does pay off. I showed compassion to people. Some people came in and had nightmarish stories. I mean, I had a woman come in and she uh, owed $500 in tickets and she didn't pay them, and she said she didn't have the money and that she was shot in the leg. She had a bullet in her leg. What do you do in a case like that?
I would probably dismiss it so she can pay her
That's what
medical
I did.
bills.
That's what I did.
One of the things that I want to read to you from your best selling book, Compassion in the Court, this is on page 116. And I'd love to hear you reflect on this because, in being a big fan of yours, The way that you spoke to children in particular always struck me. I often tell children that I'm expecting them to leave my courtroom and go on to do great things. The power in knowing someone expects greatness from you is immeasurable. I am certain that people feel inspired to do their best because along the way, someone told them they believed in them. I'm certain that I became an attorney and in time a judge because my father and mother told me I could be one. Imagine if all of us did more acts of generosity and we told more people that we believed in them, how much better we could make the world. Talk to me a little bit about that.
I think that you can change the course of someone's life, right, in like a minute by placing your hand on their shoulder and telling them that you love them, that you believe in them, and that they will succeed. If you encourage people in the gentlest way, instead of yelling and screaming and berating them, and I've always made it a very special point when people came to court with children to make to concentrate on the children in a positive manner, because as soon as they walk into the courtroom, they're terrified. A courtroom can be a very intimidating experience. You walk into a courtroom if you're 12 years old. I mean, you see a judge in a robe, you see a cop with a gun, you see an oak paneled courtroom, you see everybody sitting like this, and particularly if the judge is, for lack of a better term, a jerk, and is insisting that everybody behave in a certain way. I never did that. I always try to treat people civilly, and let them feel comfortable, but particularly when there were children in the courtroom, particularly when there was children in the courtroom. Some of the best episodes are when there were children in the courtroom and I brought them up on the bench and had them help me determine their parents' case. And some of the answers just are amazing. And they're humorous, but they're very revealing, you know. Uh, we had one in particular. There was a family that relocated from Africa and came to the United States. They had been here for 6 months, and they came to court. And I think there were 2 or 3 children, but one of the children was about 10 years old. And I had him come up, and they came from Africa, and they were only here for 6 months, and he's up at the bench, and they're nervous, so forth. So I said, I'm going to ask you one question. Is your father guilty or not guilty? And without hesitation, he said, guilty.
Oh, oh my god! So what was it? Was it like a speeding ticket or a
It
parking
was a
ticket?
speeding ticket.
Speeding ticket.
Yeah. He said, guilty. And I mean, it just broke the house up. And I always think of that. And kids are so honest.
What did you do in that case?
I dismissed the case
And why did you dismiss the case?
because he had 4 children. He came from Africa. He was just getting started to earn a living here. And so, in consideration of his family commitments and the fact that he was very respectful, uh, I took that into consideration.
So you and your wife Joyce have been married for over 60 years. What advice do you have to somebody who may be listening who is just at the beginning of their relationship?
Well, it's a give and take situation. There's no such thing as a boss in the marriage.
So you can't be the judge when you come home? Is that what you're saying?
I can't. I can't. I behave myself.
Joyce is watching, so be careful.
No, we have 5 children, and she's the best mother in the world. Uh, and we have a great relationship. We've had our issues on minor things, and we don't talk for a day, maybe a day and a half, and that's it. You know, but she knows me pretty well by now, and I know her pretty well, and we don't have those skirmishes anymore.
Well, I would imagine you're both pretty kind to each other.
Whatever she wants, she gets.
Well, there you go. You just said the secret to a marriage, Judge. Whatever my wife wants, we're good. That's how you keep peace in the house. So, Judge, you recently had a life altering diagnosis of pancreatic cancer. Can you share what this journey of facing this cancer diagnosis has taught you?
Well, it teaches you a lot. It teaches to stay close to the people you love. It drives you to prayer. You test your religion. You examine your life and see where you went wrong. Try to make amends and try to set an example of strength for those that are around you. For someone that was pretty healthy the entire life, to all of a sudden get it's a death sentence. Pancreatic cancer is not curable, so it's a question of how long you can live with it. And I haven't given up the battle. I'm fortunate, treated by two very well-known and proficient medical teams at the Dana-Farber Institute and the Miami Institute. So, because I spent the winter down in Miami, so I'm very fortunate to have excellent medical treatment. But it's a natural tendency to, when you're younger, think of how long am I going to live and how am I going to die? Am I going to die in a car accident? And, what's going to happen? So I know how I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die of cancer, and I'm going to try to stay around as long as possible. I'm very fortunate that I feel well,
Hmm.
and
You look great.
well, I feel well. I'm not giving up. There's one thing I never did in life was give up, and I'm certainly not giving up now.
If the person who's listening is going through something very difficult like you are, or somebody that they love is, they have a scary diagnosis, they're really struggling, what would you say to them, Judge?
You really have no choice. Listen to your medical providers. Those, everyone wants to be their own doctor. I do what the doctors tell me to do, and I tell them to be honest with me. How longer do I have to live? What is my prescribed course of treatment? But rely on expert medical advice is the only advice that I can give them.
Now, as you approach your 90s,
Beg your pardon?
you're approaching your 90s.
Well, it's not. I mean, I'm approaching my mid-80s. I mean.
What what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking to keep my family intact. I'm very lucky. We have a very close-knit family.
I can tell 2 of your sons are here. They're making sure that you don't, like, screw up. That's why they're here. I can tell they're here like,
Oh,
watching
I
you.
need them because I do. I'm very incorrigible, so they have to keep me aligned.
What do you think makes for a good life?
A good life is, excuse me, a good life is being a good family man, good family person, and having good friends.
Mm.
That's all there is to life. Everyone who thinks that they're better than someone else or because of their wealth, that they have special privileges. No, we're all in the same boat here together.
So, what are your plans for the future? What do you still wanna do? What do you wanna see? What do you wanna experience, Judge?
Well, I enjoy traveling.
Mhm.
Uh, I've been very lucky to travel to Europe, to my father's village where he was born, actually. He was born, I went to where my dad was born. It was a dirt floor. It's still that, it's still a dirt floor, you know? And I was able to go to the Middle East. And so I enjoy traveling. And as trite as it sounds, I know it sounds, I derive great pleasure out of helping people.
I don't think that sounds trite at all. In fact, I think that's the secret to a good life is being kind, being encouraging, and helping people.
Being in the service to others is what gives you a happy life.
For the person who's listening right now, who is like you and maybe tired or retired or a little older, what words of encouragement would you give them about what's possible for the rest of their
I think
life?
they should become active in some civic duties, you know, volunteer at the home for the elderly, help people, drive people, but be of service to others as much as you can.
And what do you think your father would say about who you've become?
Well, he put his hand on it so, and he'd be so proud. And no, it'd be a vindication of everything that he taught me. But he taught me by way of example. Like when I saw my father paying a milk bill for one of his customers, he didn't have to give me a speech. You know, he he displayed it by his actions. He was a, came here with nothing from Italy. Had to leave school. He was so smart, but he had to work menial jobs. So I owe a great deal to him, which every father should set that example.
And I think your sons would say the same since they're crying right over there in this studio, that you've set an incredible example for them.
Well, they've both done pretty well.
You're a hard act to beat, so that's saying a lot.
Well,
That's saying a lot. What would you tell yourself if you could go back in time? You're on those milk runs, you're 10 years old, you're on Federal Hill. What would you say to yourself?
I'd say don't quit because the end of the road, is successful. I mean, I have a great family. I'm not an extraordinarily wealthy man, but I'm not broke. I have an opportunity to come and speak to you and other programs as well. I've had an opportunity to give back. There's a great sense of joy
Mm.
in giving back and not just receiving. I never was a receiver, and I keep using the same phrase all the time. I got that from my father, you know, and
And we're getting it from you. That's the example that you have given to the world, to not take, but to
I
give.
am amazed at the impact that my actions have had worldwide. Now, this is going to sound very egotistical. It is not. I get messages from all over the world every day, and the conclusion that I come to is that the world is not full of compassion or understanding. We're in a very contentious world, and being exposed to people worldwide, I get the messages every day. Congratulations, though. Thank you. We need more people who take into consideration the plight of others, and it's very rewarding.
Since you have a global audience and you are inspiring and encouraging people around the world, for somebody that is feeling very discouraged, they may live in a part of the world where they don't have a lot of support, the headlines are scary. How do you keep hope alive, Judge?
Well, I mean, the first priority I have whenever I have issues like that is my religion. So I'm not a holy roller, but I am a practicing Catholic, and I'm a very strong believer in the power of prayer. And that usually is what gets me through all of these scrapes that I'm thinking about.
So, if the person listening, Judge, takes just one thing from everything that you've shared, what do you think the most important thing to do would be to make your life better?
My parting words are that we are not in this world alone, that we have to rely on each other, and that we should show understanding and compassion toward others and help them in their time of need.
Judge Caprio, it is an honor to be with you. I am so glad that you are here, that we are getting to be inspired by your life, by the way that you move through life. It has been an honor to sit with you, to be inspired by you, and I wanted to be sure to tell you I love you.
I'm very appreciative of the opportunity. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you for taking the time to listen and to learn and to spend time with somebody as remarkable as Judge Caprio. And in case nobody else tells you, I wanted to be sure to tell you that I love you and I believe in you and I believe in your ability to create a better life. And one of the things that I'm taking away from this one is the power of kindness and the fact that purpose is not what you do, it's how you do it. And I think in this moment, how we do it and how we treat other people is absolutely everything. I cannot wait to hear what you get out of this. I can't wait to hear what the people you share this episode with get out of this. And I also will be waiting for you to welcome you into the very next episode the moment you hit play. I'll see you there. And for you sitting here watching with me on YouTube, I just want to say, please share this with somebody. Don't just sit and watch. Please do something. And take a minute and subscribe to this channel because it's really a way that you can support me in bringing you new videos every single day. And I'm sure you're looking for something really inspiring to watch to really move you. So I want you to check out this video next.